All right, let's talk some MMA here on the program. Of course, UFC here in Montreal at the Bell Center coming up next weekend. And the host of Ringside Report Radio here on TSN 690, Wednesdays and Friday nights at 11 o'clock. You can also check out the website, ringsidereport.net, or follow him on Twitter, Dave Simon MMA. It's Dave Simon. What's going on, Dave? Big week.
Yeah, man, big week. UFC 154 here at the Bell Center on Saturday night. George St-Pierre coming back. The whole MMA world's going to be here this week, starting on Wednesday with the press conference, Thursday with the open workouts, Friday with the weigh-ins, and then Saturday with the fight. So, yeah, it's a big week, and it started early yesterday morning with a show in Macau, China that the UFC did. Kung Lee knocking out Rich Franklin. It happened around 11:45, but the show started at 7:30 a.m. yesterday. And, solid card put on by the UFC, and now we wait for UFC 154.
In terms of 154, do we have a sellout yet?
I don't think it's quite a sellout. There might be a couple thousand tickets still available, but, as I said last week when we talked about this,
yeah,
I'm expecting it to be sold out by fight time.
All right. Now, what's changed in a week? Do we have anything in terms of this event change in terms of anyone dropping out, anyone coming in, anything being said from one fighter about another, anything like that in the last week?
No. Thankfully, no changes. No changes to the card.
We've seen that recently where we've had a lot of changes.
Yeah, sometimes guys get hurt and they have to drop out and fights get canceled or fights get changed and opponents are brought in. Sometimes that happens. That hasn't happened yet. I'm hoping it doesn't happen, and so no changes. The only change that I can think of is that Anderson Silva said he's going to be here in Montreal, but I think we may have talked about that last week as well. So no changes. Everything is normal. Everything is going to go on as scheduled.
What's the access like to someone like GSP as he's getting ready for this event? In other words, you talked a little bit about him, that you saw him training. He looks pretty good. Are you able to just get access to him and see this at the gym that he trains at, or is this kind of he's in private time now as he gets closer to the event?
Well, he's going to be doing the press conference on Wednesday. He's going to be doing open workouts on Thursday.
Open, all right, so there you go.
Yeah, and he's going to be doing... I don't know if his workout is going to be open to everybody. I know that it's open to the media. I know that the press conference on Wednesday is open for everyone, so people can go out and...
Where is it being held?
It's at the new gas bar, something on Ottawa Street in
Ottawa Street
in Montreal.
Really?
Yeah, I had no idea about this Ottawa Street, but that's where all the UFC events are this week.
All right, Stefano, find out about Ottawa Street. I know about Ontario Street, not about Ottawa Street.
No, it's near the old port.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, all the stuff will be there.
All right, so in terms of the actual GSP match itself, is there anything that you're worried about? Is obviously everyone here in Montreal is rooting for GSP to get back on the horse and be that same guy he was before. Is there any sort of Achilles heel that you're worrying about with GSP coming into this match? Or conversely, is there anything that's really strong of his opponent that could be a huge factor here?
Carlos Condit is a very tough guy. He's a guy that doesn't really give up. He's a guy with excellent Muay Thai striking. And he's a guy that's been preparing for George St-Pierre for a long time now, and he's taken this very, very seriously. He knows it's the biggest fight of his career. And he's a dangerous guy with a huge heart. As far as George St-Pierre, the problem with him going into this fight or the maybe concern that you might have would be his knee injury. He tore his ACL. He had knee surgery. He hasn't fought since April of 2011. So you're looking at the time off from the octagon. Cage rust is a real thing. People do struggle to come back after a long layoff from the octagon, and that's going to be the concern with George St-Pierre. And I asked his coach Faraz Zahabi, I said, can you come back 100% from this kind of knee injury? And he said, you don't know. You're going to find out come fight time. And that's what we're going to find out at UFC 154. Can George St-Pierre come back to be the fighter that he was, and can he maybe even be better? Because I think George St-Pierre, as much as he's taken criticism for not finishing fights and going to decision, he's fighting the very best in the world. And I think that his game improves every single time he steps out into the octagon. So I'm looking at a better George St-Pierre than we've ever seen. I don't think that the injury will play a factor. I think that he's prepared and rehabbed the injury very intelligently, and I think that he'll be the best GSP that you've ever seen, which is very scary.
I'm going to ask a question which may show my ignorance, but in terms of the sparring that these MMA fighters are able to do to train for a fight, to get ready for a fight, how intense is it? In other words, is there a real possibility of him getting, hurt? Is it intense enough for him to prepare for you mentioned ring rust? Like, is it intense enough that it'll adequately prepare him for this match?
Well, you would have to ask him. You would have to ask his training partners. How hard are they going in sparring? They're going to be training very, very hard for this fight. He's training very hard. His sparring can go very hard. But you're not going to be able to tell until the fight. There's nothing quite like a fight. There's nothing like fighting in front of 23,000 people in the octagon where you're wearing 4-ounce gloves, where you're looking to hurt and knock out your opponent. I mean, in sparring, usually guys are wearing headgear and they're not wearing the small gloves. I mean, some guys spar like that, just like they are fighting in the UFC, but it's pretty rare. I mean, it's kind of crazy to do because you can get knocked out and you can get seriously injured that way. So the only true test is the octagon, and we'll see what happens when he gets into the octagon.
In terms of the fans, anything extracurricular that happens, or is it just show up for the fight and leave?
Yeah, well, the press conference, as I was telling you, is going to be at what's called the New City Gas, and it's at 950 Ottawa Street. It's open to the public this Wednesday at noon. So you'll be able to go check that out. It's Wednesday at noon at the New City Gas, 950 Ottawa Street.
This is. Oh, okay. Well, we have somebody in studio that's visiting with us here, who's just saying that they actually work there.
Okay.
That's kind of just completely coincidental.
What is it?
What is it?
What kind of place is this?
It's a club. All right.
It's weird that they're doing the press conference there. I guess the Bell Center wasn't available, but yeah. So that's at New City Gas.
But that's just crazy coincidence, right?
And it's not. You have to be 18 to get in there, so kids can't get into the press conference. So at noon, at New City Gas, 950 Ottawa Street on Wednesday, you can go to the press conference, and then I think on Thursday, the open workouts will also be there. They start at 11 a.m. They're also free and open to the public.
The workouts are at the club?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, they'll have mats set up. It's not like a serious workout. They'll just put some mats down and, take a few pictures, do some pad work, hit the pads, but it's not like they're going to be full sparring.
Right.
All
right.
So, yeah, that's going to be at that New City Gas place at 11 a.m. this Thursday for the open workouts, and the weigh-ins will also be there at 4 p.m. on Friday.
Huh.
So all that stuff is open to the public. The press conference on Wednesday, open workouts on Thursday, and the weigh-ins on Friday.
Would you like to see them do something bigger in terms of these events? The day before, have some kind of fanfare, like they did in Toronto, of course, when they had the giant event. Do you think it's something that should be happening more in terms of just, traveling from city to city and have more sort of fan-friendly activities?
I mean, these activities are pretty fan-friendly. I don't know. I mean, the NBA came here, right? They did one game. What else did they do? Did they do anything 3 days before they were here, 4 days before they were here?
Yep.
Not that I know
fair.
of.
That's very fair.
So, I mean, look what the UFC is doing already.
There's the NBA Hoop It Up that's here in the summers, right? So you can enter a team and kind of do that thing. But I agree with you. In terms of surrounding the actual event, very little was done. Obviously, the NFL was here earlier this year. That's, another big sort of entity that had some things set up, Fan Fest, that kind of thing.
They didn't do a game here.
No.
The UFC's bringing a pay-per-view title fight here. And yeah, it would be cool to have one of those UFC Fan Expo things, but they only do that for the really big mega events. And this is not one of them. It's a big show, but it's not a super show. They only do those Fan Expo things like twice a year, and it was cool when they did it in Toronto. It was fun to go to, but that's all right. If they're not doing it this time, it's not necessary.
All right, so Wednesday night you'll begin ramping up the coverage for next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we've interviewed pretty much everybody fighting on this card, and we'll be at the press conference obviously on Wednesday during the daytime. So then Wednesday night we'll recap what happened. We'll probably have some stuff from the press conference, interviews with a few people that we haven't spoken to yet, and we'll start previewing the fights, and we'll recap everything that happened yesterday in China with Kung Lee and a beautiful knockout of Rich Franklin.